And it looks like it's 1 o'clock, so thanks for being here. As we engage with middle school leadership, counselors, teachers, social workers, and how this virtual learning is working in this new world in which we're living. So thanks for being here. You'll see down at the bottom my email, as well as, I don't know where Wendy's went on there. It was on there, sorry, Wendy. But Wendy's is wendyz@michiganprincipals.org. And her Twitter handle is @MASSP. So you can contact either one of us at any point in time as we go through this or afterwards. As we engage with this, we're going to go pretty quick so we can get our panelists going. But before we begin, will you just remember to remain muted? If you want to pose a question, put it over in the chat box. Wendy and I will be monitoring that and posing questions to the group based on what you ask and the questions that you're holding on to. If you want to put it in the gallery view, you'll be able to see the participants and, the panelists view and be able to see their faces as they speak, hopefully. So if you want to put it in the gallery view, please do that for yourself. The question often comes up is, will the recording be present to you and are you able to access it? The question is, or the answer to that is, yes, it will be. The slides will be as well. That'll come out on Friday. So thank you for your patience with that. The format for today might look a little different than we usually do in the Leader to Leader with the middle school level, but it's going to be a dialogue between the panelists. We have approximately 11 people that are going to be with us sharing their responses into their perspectives on how this is going for them. They're going to be pretty raw with their responses, meaning it might not be their opinions, but it might be what the patterns that they're noticing within their building or hearing from other parents in the community, their friends, whatever it might be. It's going to be the panelists are going to introduce themselves so that we know who they are and where they come from. They're going to do that one by one. And then Wendy and I will simply facilitate the conversation. We'll paraphrase, we'll question, and try to get all voices heard. This will go pretty fast because we're only together for an hour, so bear with us as we go through that. Our welcome and overview is where we're going to start. We'll hear from those voices, the boots on the ground. Let's hear perspectives of what's really happening and the feelings that are out there. And then finally, a reflect and connect at the end of where do we go here and what are some next steps. As leaders that are in the room, parents, educators, keep this in the back of your mind. In what ways might today's voices mirror or conflict with the realities, and how do you know? So sometimes what we think are the realities aren't the realities until we start dipsticking in with people and are vulnerable and find out what's really going on. For instance, leading a session with a group yesterday, I had to rethink what it looked like to collaborate in an online learning system and how to navigate not only the content, but how to navigate the collaboration, how to navigate the tool, and then how to navigate the skills that I had bringing forth. So it's complex work that we're going through. So be patient with each other as we go through these pieces as well. If our panelists would do this for us, yourself, and then just go one by one down that the view of who's here. Tell us who you are, where you come from, and what's your role.
I guess I'll start.
Well, I think I'm first.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm Leslie Anderson. I'm a counselor at Liberty Middle School, and that's part of the Plymouth Canton School District in Canton.
Thank you.
I'm Todd Block. I'm a 7th grade science teacher at Warren Woods Middle School in Warren, Michigan.
Hi, I'm Chantel Vandergellian, and I teach 8th grade English at Wyoming Junior High in Wyoming Public Schools, and I'm also an instructional coach.
And Chantel, congratulations, was just nominated as, I believe it's Region 6 Teacher of the Year, so congratulations to you.
Oh, Region 3.
Region 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Monero. I am the Information Literacy Specialist at Ruther Middle School and Rochester Community Schools.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Josh Delmatter. I'm the 8th grade science teacher at Grant.
Hi, I'm Emily Collier. I am a special ed teacher and mathematics teacher at Hart Middle School in Rochester Hills.
Hi, I'm Leanne Bink. I am the school social worker for Escanaba Junior and Senior High School in Escanaba, Michigan.
And Leanne, I just noticed your name has been documented as Brink and not Bink, so our apologies to you for that one.
No worries.
To tag on her, I'm Liz Schlenvolt from Escanaba High School, and I get the honor of working with Leanne Bink. I am the counselor.
Hi, I'm Kim Floyd. I teach French 1 and 2 at McDonald Middle School, and that's part of East Lansing Public Schools.
Hello, I'm Demila Prince. I teach 6th grade English Language Arts at Oak Park Preparatory Academy at Oak Park School District.
Hi, I'm Brett Crable. I teach 6th grade math and language arts at Greenlee Middle School.
And Wendy, do you want to tell us who you are?
Hey everyone, I'm Wendy Zadeb, the Executive Director at the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. And unfortunately for a lot of you that got recruited for the panel, you suffer from Friends of Wendy syndrome. Either I worked in your district before or I know your principal, and so you got recruited, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much. So let's jump right on in and be vulnerable, share the air. We're noticing that you're not having your voice heard, Wendy and I will invite you in by calling your name out. So let's start with the first question that was posed is, what are some things you've appreciated most in regard to your school's approach to remote learning? So if somebody would like to get us kicked off, go ahead.
All right, I'll start. I think our district's approach has been slow and easy, and very little pressure on the staff to allow us to try a lot of different things. I think the freedoms inside a framework have been very good for us, and allowing us to approach it in different ways and allowing us to collaborate at grade level, so that, you know, the 7th grade science teachers are doing things together, the 8th grade science teachers are doing things together. So allowing us more time to collaborate and allowing us the freedoms to do it the way we want to do it and instruct the way our group decides to do it.
I would piggyback on that. I would say that our district has been really good at meeting teachers where they're at, and also emphasizing that it's important for us teachers to meet students where they're at. And that's been really nice. Also, our tech department has been amazing and trying to help us all, get devices if we need them, or figure out which platform we want to work from, because our district doesn't have one universal platform that everyone has to work from. So been really appreciative of our tech as well.
So could you share again, what district are you from?
Oh, sure, East Lansing.
So in East Lansing, at your school, you're saying that you're not all using Canvas or Google Classroom or something. Teachers are just kind of using whatever platform they want to.
That's correct.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to jump in. I think that our district has done a really great job, and our administrators and the superintendent, of really focusing on first connecting with the kids on an emotional level before jumping into the academic piece. And I think that has been really, really helpful to our teachers and to our students, because I think our students at this time are really craving that connection with their teachers. You know, I have the kids that never wanted to come to my class begging me to Zoom on a Monday morning. So, and sometimes that is all we do, is just, connect on that, social, emotional level. And sometimes that's enough. But our administrators have really done a great job of just giving us permission to do that, first and foremost. So I appreciate that.
So you guys can see in the chat, we have the panelists just kind of lining up, saying next if they'd like to comment. So that'll just help with so many different people. So Rachel, if you want to share your thought.
Yeah, so one thing that our district really did is we thought about district-wide resources we could give instead of just individual buildings. Just because someone lives in a different zip code doesn't mean they shouldn't have the same opportunities to those learnings. And so I work with the media department, and so we K through 12 all got together and designed a universal digital makerspace for any student in our community to access and learn from. And so that's been really great, seeing kids from the north side of the community connecting and learning with kids from the south side of the community. So looking at it as a whole system-wide approach, and the opportunities we could give there have been really key and important in our district.
Well, and unfortunately for you, Rachel, I saw you posting those on Twitter and I thought they were amazing. So I kind of hunted you down. If you wouldn't mind, Rachel, would you put your Twitter handle in the chat? Because everybody, I'm telling you, you want to look at the makerspace things that Rachel's been putting out. It's just super cool, really cool.
Sure, I put that there, and then I will put the link to the Google site that we created. We divided it up for resources for teachers, for parents, and for students. So any of the stakeholders can go on there and find tools and tips to help cultivate this maker environment at home.
You know, and I think like what you're doing, you know, in your role as a media specialist, kind of putting that out there is really important, because I think what happens a little bit when we get in this distance learning or remote learning world especially is, you know, people maybe feel the presence of their English teacher or their math teacher, but you know, what are those ancillary staff doing? And so your presence, I think, with what you've done has been really innovative, and I think parents are looking for those types of activities that they can do with their kids, like their own enrichment. And so I think what you've done is super cool and really commendable. So was that a district-wide thing, or how did that kind of come about?
So the day that they said we were going to remote learning, I thought, well, my position has completely changed, right? I'm not going to be working one-on-one with these kids, doing these maker activities or getting them books. So how can I shift all of that online? And how can I direct them to one place so that they're all going to one place that they can all access? And so I went to Google Sites because I was like, well, I want the other ILS team to also contribute and add to it. And so I said, hey guys, here's an idea. How can you help me make it better? And so some of them have teamed up with me and put in resources on there. Some of them are helping create the videos that we're doing. I have parents who have reached out and said, thank you. This is the inspiration I needed to help my Girl Scout troop as we're trying to figure out how to do some of these badges virtually. So I think it can lend itself to any type of parent or any type of student. And I love that it's a collaborative approach. And like this week, the Maker Challenge was from a family in our district. So they were like, hey, can we submit something for other people to try? So it's just continuing to grow and evolve as we navigate this online learning.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. Okay, Demilla, what do you have?
Oh, sorry. I agree with mostly what everyone else said about the flexibility of our administration and being able to collab with other team members and to get lessons. But one thing that I really think that my district did very well was our superintendent made sure that we had a large amount of students that did not have laptops, access to the internet. And we contacted all of our students in our district, and all of the students that did not have laptops and or internet, we went to the school, we got hotspots for them, and we converted the laptops within the building into Chromebooks, and we distributed them to our students. And I think that they did an exceptional job in that, so that barrier was no longer there for students to not be able to get on Zoom calls or to do the curriculum that was in Google Classroom or Study Sync, which is an internet-based curriculum. So by providing those laptops and the internet for our students, it was an exceptional thing that our district did. And I'm in Oak Park.
So what would you say is the percentage of your students, just you personally, you know, that are connecting on a regular basis?
So we're only required to meet twice a week. However, I meet with my students, I'm available 5 days a week. And out of the 120 students I have, I would say on an average, maybe 15 to 20% will come online, but then I can go into Google Classroom and see who's completing their work. So they may not want to come on. I normally am teaching a lesson, or if they have any questions, I'm there to answer for them or their parents. So they may not need to come on for that one-on-one, or if they just want to talk about something that's going on, they may not want to do that, but I can see who's getting their work done and who's not. And I would say a little over 50%.
Good, that's great. All right, so we have in the queue, we've got Brett next, and then Chantel, and then Josh, and then we'll switch to a different question.
Okay, mine's actually a lot like Demilla. One of the things that our district kind of, the very beginning, our mantra was kind of compassion over compliance. And really, like, our first phone call had nothing to do with education necessarily. It was checking in on the family, seeing what they needed, what we could provide them. What was the first thing? Then we talked to see if they had internet, what type of internet they had, whether it was reliable, found the best contact numbers, and laid a good foundation for trying to make sure we were as successful as possible from the get-go. That was probably the biggest thing that I think made a huge difference for us. We're a little more of a rural area where reliable internet's not accessible to everybody.
So are you doing packets then, Brett? Like
Yeah.
like you have a percentage of people doing that?
We have, and it's a pretty low percentage. We converted several of our buses that do food distribution to local townships. Their hotspots, the library in town, put their internet up for free. So we've converted some of those mobile stations into internet hotspots. That way we would kind of try and reduce the packet number down.
That's awesome. And so how do the packets get collected in the same manner, like from the buses, or how do you get those back?
What I've done is I did the Google Voice, created a separate one for my school. Now I can say I have an office phone. And I have a lot of parents that they take a picture, and that's the easiest, quickest way to take a picture, send it to me. I know when that phone rings that that's a school, that's a student or a parent trying to get a hold of me. I'd say probably half my parents utilize it that way. Some of them, when they get to work, they'll email me, or we send a return label with the packets, and if that's what's best for you, the teachers know that they're probably going to be about a week behind as far as the material getting to us, but it's worked out pretty well. And then in the office they get scanned and then sent to the teachers remotely, so we don't have to go into the building.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you guys right now, just in the short time that we've been talking, I'm already feeling better about what's going on out there. Because it's just really this time you just worry so much about kids and opportunities and connections and ability to have those stable adults in their lives. And hearing what you guys are able to accomplish, it definitely makes me feel a little bit better, just knowing that they have someone they can connect with, and knowing not everyone's going to, grab the rope that you're all throwing them. That's for sure too. All right. So our next person, I think we had Chantel up.
Thanks. I really appreciated Wyoming Public Schools, the administration putting together a thoughtful and intentional PD for all of the staff to be able to learn different tools, to be able to transition their curriculum online. And it was all choice. And then we had the time, so we started a week later than some of the other schools, just so we could prepare thoughtful and intentional experiences for our students. And to collaborate with our grade level teams. So I work with a really amazing 8th grade level team. And so having that time to be able to think through what are our most important standards that we feel we need to address, what can we set aside for now, and then just everyone pulling together, and we provide our students meals still, and we have administrators handing those out and teachers volunteering their time. So really just coming together, and I appreciate that about Wyoming.
So you mentioned kind of picking out those essential standards. Would you say that your goal is to introduce new learning, or is your goal more to reinforce concepts they've already learned?
Well, that's hard. We did talk about wanting to reinforce the standards that are recursive in English. I think that I could feel confident that they had 3/4 of a year together. And so then it was the smaller things like the grammar standards. Okay, they might not get this, but that'll be okay. And just continuing to read and to write and to express their thoughts. But it was more of reinforcing. And then we put if you want to go beyond, you can check out these new pieces of learning, but knowing that not all of our students are going to engage in that. And so being thoughtful of what might that look like next year.
Interesting. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, Josh, what do you have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't really speak for the whole district, but I know our building, our principal there has been very good about setting the expectations and making sure that everybody knows that first and foremost, it's the well-being of the kids, and making sure that we're contacting them each week to check in through phone. And then from there, we actually had an opportunity to use a new platform called Maven to get some videos out to the kids, get some attendance taken, and start looking at some data. And he's been really instrumental in getting that going, and it's helping us kind of look at and more pinpoint what we need to focus on with kids, because we have kids that are doing all of the work every day and need more and need some push. We have kids who are getting on a few times and not really, maybe doing some of the work, but not all of the work. And then we have kids who are not doing anything. And so that platform has allowed us to, when we make those calls to the kids, you know, give kudos to the ones that are doing everything well. And then, you know, hey, I see you're logging in, but you're not doing the work, or I see you're not doing anything. What can I do to help you? So that's been beneficial for most of us when we're making our calls to the kids.
So could you, some of the people on the webinar don't know what Maven is. How would you kind of summarize what that is and what you're doing with it?
So it kind of started as a career platform for students to be able to get on and look at different job types, and then to track you know, their likes that they have through their middle school and high school careers, so they have an idea of what they, you know, more what they want to do. We all know the career cruising, you can manipulate that to be a star athlete or whatever it is that you want to do when you do those things. So Maven really does keep track of all of their clicks on things they like. And just because of the accessibility of the platform, you know, they really work to try to keep it so students can use a 2G network to access the material. They really want to start pushing grants and stuff like that for kids in underprivileged areas to get phones, smartphones, to be able to access our material. And that career platform has really transformed into this way for us to get information out to our middle school students in various ways, whether it's through video from us, like we put our own videos on there, or we share videos from YouTube. So it's really been beneficial for that.
Awesome. Well, MASSP has been doing webinars providing an overview of that Maven resource, and it is free. So if you missed that, I'm trying to find the link on our website. I will put that in the chat box for everybody. Okay, Steve, what's our next question?
So thanks for everybody for participating in that. Sounds like some key ideas are flexibility with teaching staff, with students, with our administrators, and a special thanks to districts for being able to jump right on board and make things happen for everybody in an organized fashion. The other one is the teacher training that was involved, either pre-hand or ongoing, to get people on board, and the importance of connections with kids and one another, and the adult collaboration that was perhaps sometimes forced, but also embraced. As you think about all of those things and your current circumstances, what are some obstacles or biggest challenges with remote learning and teaching?
So I'm not sure if I'm following, if I'm next or not.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure. So, well, I think, you know, before we knew that this was really a full-blown pandemic, I was really fortunate being in Rochester. Our superintendent kind of called it early and gave us 2 full days of really kind of teacher prep to, you know, work with our teams and figure out what this was going to look like, and, you know, what it was going to look like for each individual department. But I think the hardest thing for me personally as a teacher is those kids that are not doing anything, or they're not coming to the Zooms, they're not, you know, filling out, you know, the feedback forms or doing any of the work, and not being able to get a hold of those kids either, just, you know, really wondering and worrying about them. And we do have some teachers who are, you know, knocking on their door. We have a terrific liaison officer who is doing house calls and welfare checks, you know, all the time. But it's that reaching those kids that are not engaging, I think, is just so worrisome and weighs heavily on all the teachers. So
I thought that was really smart, actually, when, you know, this originally happened in Rochester. said, hey, to the parent community, we're going to take, a couple of days and get ourselves, in order so that we're going to be able to bring the staff in and make some plans. I thought that was a really, really smart move. Okay, we've got Todd, you're next.
All right. One of the biggest challenges is the missing kids. We obviously are very much missing them, and knowing how to reach out and get to them without everybody doing it at once has definitely been a challenge in our district. But I think the bigger challenge to the kids that are working, since our district is not heavy in tech, we don't have one-to-one, the students are using their own, or that district did hand out laptops, was just getting them used to using the learning management system that we're using. We're in Schoology, and students didn't know how it worked. We had to take a lot of time in the first couple of weeks doing this to answer questions, do Zooms just to demonstrate and show students how to use the technology tools. And just to log in, we had somebody hack all their passwords, so we had to reset them all, and we had to communicate with all the parents how to do all that, because we had a system that we used district-wide, and then we realized that somebody decided to take advantage of it and post stuff in their Schoology accounts that wasn't appropriate. So getting past the technology hurdle and getting our students used to doing that online has been a challenge as we continue today, just getting people up to speed. We're doing a mixed media instruction, so we have about 85% of our students working on technology-wise, but we also have to make packets for the 15% in each grade level that are not, and trying to sync that up and try to make it as same as stop, and providing feedback to those students that are doing it in packets on a weekly basis. We've gotten over the hurdles, but they've been the hurdles we've been getting through over time.
So Todd, you mentioned the Schoology platform, and that being new to the students. Obviously that was probably new to the teaching staff in terms of delivering instruction that way. How did you get trained, or how did the teaching staff get up to speed?
So yeah, it was definitely new. Like, our district had been using it at the high school level, and the middle school it was sort of been talked about briefly. So a few teachers have been trained. We've been doing a lot of webinars. You know how I learn. I just go on Twitter and ask a couple people, and I jump through all the hoops and talk to people. So some of us are good at figuring it out ourselves because we're self-motivated. And then basically, you find a lead in a group, and then they teach the rest of the group. And we're lucky that we have enough leaders that want to figure things out and went and took the classes, and then they collaborated with the team. We're still getting there. Obviously, you learn something new each day as you go, because we've been only using it for 6 weeks. But we're learning with the kids. That's how we should be teaching anyway, I think, in some regards. So it's all good. It's been challenges. We still get emails from kids. Hey, I can't take this quiz. I want to take this quiz. Oh, my co-teacher I'm at school, and my co-teacher was here in his room, cleaning out his room, and he said, oh, I had to look at his grade book and show him what he had to do in Schoology to get it unlocked. So we still have those, and we get, I'm on the list of call Todd if you have a problem with something, but yeah.
Well, good for you. That's awesome. All right, Liz, you're up next.
I would say that one of the biggest obstacles for our area was getting all the students to have at least one piece of equipment, like a Chromebook, that they could use and have the internet service in their house. Now that we have all of our students who have at least one piece, it's a matter of sharing. How do you balance the time between a parent who may be working from home and then multiple children in the home having to share and figure out, okay, well, I'm online from this time to this time doing, my class meetings are here to here, and this kid and students and families have had to try to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
We have a lot of students who are in rural areas that don't have cable to have charter, to have that available to them. So we did have to get them hotspots, and we have that available to them now, but still it's a balancing act for many of our families. And then the families that work and are leaving their homes to go work and hoping that their children, okay, so you've got this, right? You're going to figure it out. And the parents are saying they come home and they're like, yeah, my child didn't do their work. And I'm exhausted because I worked all day, and everyone's in the home now. So there's all of the home stuff that still has to be done versus, they were gone to school, and now there's more dishes, there's more food, or less food because now everybody's home. So there's been a lot of juggling that's had to go on in multiple families, and there's also the problem that kids get bored being on the computer. It's not a video game, no matter how many cool little gadgets and programs we find for them. There's a lot of kids who are still traditional enough that they like, give me some paper, that I don't have to sit and look at a screen all day long. It's boring. And there's so many other cool things to look at on that screen that I'm going to let that school assignment go over here on this part of the screen. And then I'm going to be watching, you know, my YouTube videos for fun stuff that I want to watch. And I don't care what that English teacher is telling me or my health teacher is telling me, because the other part is way more interesting, and I can nod and they can think I'm looking at it, but really I'm doing my own thing over here.
Right. Well, those are all very real things, so no doubt about that. How about you, Brett?
Outside of the obvious ones, I'd say probably the thing that, I don't want to say bothers isn't the right way, but providing feedback to the kids when they do something, is finding that timing to be able to do so has been a little bit of a struggle. So I have a kid that turns in, we're doing paragraph writing right now for a research paper that we're doing. Whether they go back and look at it is sometimes that time frame between being able to provide them that feedback that used to be instantaneous is, I've only got their attention for so long. So that becomes a little bit like, that's probably the one that, looking ahead to next year, where I would say like, hey, I've got a front load. If you turn your paper and you turn this assignment here, you can expect your feedback by this time. The next day you should go back, being able to kind of set up those norms for what the distance learning would look like in that regard.
Mm-hmm. I think that's, you know, that's really a challenge of building the plane in the air, so to speak, right? Is that there wasn't a lot of that time. You know, now that you've done it, you're like, boy, wouldn't it be great if every teacher was using the same platform, if every teacher set up their classroom the same way, like, you know, all these things that you now know. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, you know, I think we all need to be thinking about is there. I think that there's a difference in what I would call pandemic learning and then what I would call moving into next year. So what might be acceptable to parents right now, you know, because this is an emergency and everybody just kind of is doing the best they can. But if we need to continue some type of remote learning in the fall, I don't think what we're doing right now is probably going to be good enough in most cases. Some districts, like, you know, we're doing a lot of blended learning. And so for them, it wasn't quite as, you know, as big of a leap. But I think that's something that we all need to start thinking about. What are those things that need to be put in place so that we have a better process moving forward if we can't all return 100%, you know, to our classrooms in the fall. And that's going to be a challenge, you know, and that's a probably a little more at the principal level, but still definitely going to be worked on whole staff, right? Thinking about, you know, how to address that. So that's a great point. Okay, how about Demilla?
I agree pretty much with a lot of things people said, especially Emily when she talked about how the challenge of the students not being engaged or even getting all of your students on. And even Liz talked about when she, how do you keep them on your screen instead of going to a YouTube screen? But in addition to that, also the parents' unfamiliarity with the curriculum and with just how to maneuver and manage everything within the inside of the Google Classroom. And so that support is not 100% there. And I don't think it's always on because they don't want to. I think sometimes they just don't know how. And they are working and they do have multiple children, a lot of parents in a lot of cases. And so just them being more familiar with the curriculum, it's hard. I've heard so many parents say, oh, you don't teach it the way I learned it, you know? And so, you know, there's just a lack of knowledge. And I think that too would help, because if the kids don't get on at 9 a.m. when I'm on or at 1 p.m. when I'm on, then if the parents were a little bit more knowledgeable of the curriculum and how to maneuver and things with inside study sync or vocabulary, whatever we're using, it would just be a little bit easier for the students. But they're dealing with so many other things. It's just a challenge all the way around.
Well, one of the things, hearing that also with the principal group, is that MEA and MASSP are starting some task forces, and some of you might be interested in joining those. MEA Vice President Chandra Matafari sent out an email to the MEA membership inviting teachers to join these task forces, and we're going to arrange them by LMS. So if you're using Google Classroom, if you're using Canvas, Schoology, whatever it might be. And the idea behind these task forces is a lot of people have already kind of figured some good things out within each of those LMS systems. So let's say that you were using Canvas and there's already a school has already made a bunch of parent tutorials. Well, wouldn't you like to have those and make them yourself, right? So that's what these task forces are going to be doing. So anyone who's interested in joining one of those task forces, if you're an MEA member, you might want to check out your email or go to their website and look into that if you're interested in joining us. And we thought it'd be a great project for principals and teachers to collaborate on and think about what does their school community need, and put those things together and not reinvent the wheel if someone else has already made it, and that might help us moving forward. Okay, Rachel.
I'm just going to really piggyback. A lot was just said as the similar thinking that I had. Teachers go to school for years to get training on strategies of how to help kids. And then parents are like kind of at this point where you have to now work full time, but also now monitor and support your kid. So what strategies and resources are districts putting out there for parents to go to? Because, I mean, yeah, you can do a Google search, but then you have to weed through a ton of stuff to find the specific resource that's really going to help you answer the question that you have. So if districts could create possibly like a website or a mini course for parents to engage with or pose questions and find resources. One specific example is if you are a parent of a struggling reader, maybe you don't know those strategies to help your kid and you're just kind of like, okay, come on, it's time to read, let's go. But then your kid closes down. So how can teachers and principals and districts curate some resources to help parents during those difficult times so they don't feel so possibly helpless at the moment and don't feel so frustrated? We understand that they have a lot going on and they're still trying to work. But they do have a vested interest in their children, and I think they'd be willing and open to any resources that a building could offer to them, and I think that would help us overcome maybe some of these obstacles so we don't experience some of the same things in the fall.
Yeah. Something I saw a couple of different teachers do is a Zoom meeting at night when the parents are home. And so it's the kid and the parent and talking about like what the assignments are for the week and showing them some things, which I saw a lot of parents that were in this one, Zoom say, wow, that was like so helpful because they're getting bombed with emails. And sometimes it's just hard for them to navigate all that. But just they were more than willing to give up, a half hour of their evening, on Friday to be prepared for next week. It was worth it to them rather than having to weed through a million emails and literally if someone like on screen showing them things. So I think that was a pretty smart strategy, but everything you just said, yeah, I agree with. Okay, we're going to take Kim and then Steve's going to come back in and maybe synthesize a little bit for us and give us another question.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have spoken to what I was thinking of saying, but I would just say, especially in East Lansing, since we don't have a common platform, that has really been a challenge. I know it was a breath of relief for teachers that we didn't all have to learn something new right away as we were trying to get into whatever the remote or distance learning was going to look like. Teachers who were less tech savvy, I know, had a lot of anxiety about having to all of a sudden learn Google Classroom or something like that. So, but the issue then is some teachers are using Google Classroom, some teachers are not, some teachers are just emailing out the lessons, that are YouTube linked or whatever. And so for students, I think that's caused some anxiety because they have to look in so many different places for their 6 classes, and so it's my hope that if we do have to do some sort of remote learning, in the fall, that we're able to all come, in my district and have a common platform, because I know that that's been difficult for students and parents, getting all the different emails from the different teachers with the different lessons and trying to keep that all straight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's been a challenge for us.
So if I remember correctly, you're a French teacher, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what, I was thinking about world language specifically. What resources have you found, or what are you using? Are you taping lessons yourself? Are you sending them to certain websites, or what types of things are you doing?
Yeah, so we're required to tape a lesson a week. All electives are required to tape a lesson a week, and I use Screencastify for that. But what we decided to do, I'm also the co-chair of the World Language Department, which is at East Lansing. We offer 3 different languages, grades 6 through 12. We have done a learning menu. So there's like 10 options of different things that they can do to practice the target language that they're studying. And we kind of gave different points to each one and said, try to earn, 5 points a week. So the kids really, it's all around the same theme, but there's lots of different activities that they can use to practice it. So one is they can watch my lesson. Some kids would hate to do that. So we are using lots of different, like we have Quizlet, we use quizzes. There's lots of YouTube, obviously, things that we can link to, and then we use Google Forms for the kids to answer questions to whatever we've put up, and they send that in through Google Forms, and then we can give them feedback that way as well. So we really wanted the students to have choice. It was very important to us that they continue to practice their language. Most of our students are going to continue in that language next year, and so we don't want them to just not do it. But we also wanted them to have choice. So that's what we focused on.
Cool. I like that. Okay, Steve.
So it sounds like a few things. One is, how do we keep students motivated, especially in the next 3 weeks? And then if it has to continue into next year, how to keep students motivated? Also, understanding the dynamics that live within their current homes, from parents understanding what curriculum and instruction looks like and motivation of their kids, and what supports they have. And if they're sharing a device between 5 or 6 people within their household. So keeping those things in mind as we're going forward. It sounded like the biggest thing is, how do you maintain connection with kids? That's a piece that most of us are missing as educators, and that's why we went into it, I'm assuming. And how do we keep that balance going? So you've got a few weeks left, and this might be our reality going into next year or at some point in time next year. As you think about that 2020-21 school year, if there were some things that you could request of your administrator or your administrative team, or things that need rethinking, what might those be?
Okay, Chantel looks ready to answer that one.
Thank you. As I thought about what this might possibly have to look like next year, I'm eager to hear back from our most important stakeholders, the parents and the students. I have students who will free write to me like, I love the reading for this week. Thank you so much. That was great. But there are some kids, like we've mentioned before, who aren't engaging. What is the missing piece for them? What do they need? And like someone mentioned earlier, I have a student who, we all have various ways or icons on our screens where we know if they are homeless or ELL learners. I have a student who's homeless, and I have not been able to reach him. Like, what does he need? And moving forward, how do we get that feedback so that we can be prepared for what next year will bring us? So hearing back from those stakeholders, I'd love to see what is working for them, or hear from other districts. What is really working for you for the students that are most at risk?
Great. Leslie.
And that I was just going to bring up the at-risk part, and I'm just thinking, I'm a school counselor, so I'm thinking in particular students with IEPs and students with 504s who I've been swamped with getting emails from parents and the students saying that they're overwhelmed because of, as Kim mentioned, the different, we use Google Classroom and all those different emails coming from all those different sources, and then those students who already are at a disadvantage trying to maneuver through all of those different sites. So I think moving forward, what is out there that offers it all to be encompassed into one to make it easier to navigate for these kids? Because even the smartest ones are having a hard time navigating 6 different Google Classrooms. Parents are making charts with you know, they're almost like going back to elementary school and putting down what's each day and what's happening. And not all kids have that. So when you don't have kids who have those organized parents, they're the ones not engaged. And I'm finding it, especially those kids with ADD, with the 504s with ADHD and ADD, I'm being slammed with emails from those kids saying, help, help, help. So now I'm a part of 18 different teachers' Google Classroom, so that I'm that mom that's going in and making a chart for them and sending them an email on Monday of, this is what you have to do for the week. And I don't think I can keep that up into next year. So there has to be another way.
Yeah, I will tell you that that is what I hear consistently. Doesn't matter if I'm talking to principals, parents, students, or, you know, teachers, is realization that there has to be a more systemic approach to what we're doing. So it makes it more manageable for everyone, you know? So I think what you're feeling is very normal, if that makes you feel any better. Okay, Rachel.
Okay, my biggest recommendation would be for buildings and district-wide to use this routine called Think, Feel, Care, and to step inside this system of remote learning and explore it from different people's point of view. So think about a student, think about a parent, and think about a teacher, maybe even an admin, and explore what do they think their role is within the system, what is their emotional response to this system, and then maybe what are their values and motivations in regard to this system. And then one way to think about to get rid of possibly assumptions is to actually interview these different stakeholders and understand maybe what do they feel like is their role, and then how can we best meet their needs so that they can have a better successful time in remote learning.
I love that.
Put a copy of the routine in the chat if anyone would like to reference it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Emily?
Unmute myself. Leslie just said it all. I am a special educator, and then I also teach math. So I am trying my hardest to, you know, follow behind my students and their, you know, 6 classes. And I think, you know, when I think about at the secondary level, how do you really streamline 6 different classes for all of these kids? I mean, it just seems like such an impossible feat. But I think, you know, our administration did a great job. I mean, we are doing, you know, class Monday, you know, Monday 1st and 2nd hour, Wednesday 3rd and 4th, Friday 5th and 6th. And Tuesday and Thursday is kind of like a planning time and catch-up time, Zooming with kids. And I'm literally Zooming with my kids, going through all their 6 classes, trying to, you know, play catch-up. On top of teaching my own daughter, you know, like, I'm not sure how many of you have children, but, and I'm a teacher. I've been doing this for a long time. I am very tech savvy, and it's a struggle sometimes, you know. I just don't know. What the right answer is to streamline those 6 classes for those kids. And it's, you know, it's going to be a little bit difficult, I think, to think about what we're going to do.
Very, very valid point. And, you know, the thing that you mentioned about having your own children, I've thought about that so many times. You know, before coming to MASSP, I was principal at Rochester High School, and I'm still Facebook friends with so many of those teachers, and many of them have young children, like, you know, under the age of 5, and they have a spouse that's gone back to work. And so it's like, how are you doing all those things? And that's a very real challenge, and not one that I can solve, but I definitely see that as a concern, you know, moving into the fall, if this is going to continue. And I did see, you know, this kind of discussion has been going on in the news, on social media. Like, what is the role of the school? You know, are we babysitters? Is that we're going to reopen school because everybody wants to go back to work, and regardless of what, you know, health risks there might be? And that's a really tough one. That's a tough piece to reconcile for sure. Todd.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what everybody's been saying. I think as educators, we need more collaboration so that we can streamline those things and know what's going on in each class and how we're scheduling it. I think that's been one of our things we've been talking about as a team. As each week we have decided to reach out more and more on our teams and talk about how we're setting up the week for our students as we think about it from their perspective and the parents' perspective. A lot of teachers have gone away from having assignments due in the middle of the week and leaving it open all the way till Friday so that, hey, the kids get to it. I have some students that finish them when I post them on Sunday and some students that wait all the way till Saturday. And, being a parent of 3, I have twins in 5th grade and I have a sophomore. I see how those assignments really hang them up where, otherwise they would have they had more time on one day than on different. And then I also see that from my high school students, how it's not coordinated, where one student will have a really busy day, one teacher will have a really busy assignment and it will be top loaded. So we need to talk as teaching teams of how we, especially in middle school where teaming is a fundamental thing, and say, all right, which days of the week are you going to be heavy? How's your assignment going to look? And coordinate more. And then also we need to get that valuable feedback back from our stakeholders, parents, and as Rachel said, parents and students, and see how they want to digest it. Obviously, I've seen it from all angles as I get feedback from my parents, where some parents love getting the assignments on Sundays and having it open. Other parents want the day by day. So I have it written down. If you want to do it day by day, here it is. Here's the 4 days that you can work through it. There are those struggles. So I think we do need to get really coordinated with our teaching teams and think, especially in the middle school, and think about how and what we're asking our students and parents to conquer each week so that we can put something out that it's manageable and we see positive results.
Yeah, 100%, Todd. I think that's exactly right. Your idea of thinking about what does the kids' whole schedule look like is really important. And I have noticed that some districts have like 1 day a week at least where they don't have contact with kids. That's like a planning time, and they build in that time for teachers to have that connection. So I think that's a great point. So we have Josh coming up and then Judy Williams, and then we'll be wrapping it up.
So, I think that we only have 4 weeks left here. And my biggest fear is, one, a lot of staff are just kind of skating through this time. They're just putting stuff out there that's, filling the status quo for the kids, and the kids are doing the same thing. And then we're going to go into a break where there's virtually no contact with the kids for the summer. And we're going to have to train our teachers that are not the tech savvy go-getters to do this online distance learning stuff in a few weeks. And we're going to have to train our students to do this again in the fall. And that scares me, because we're going to backslide quite a bit just without being in the classroom, but then to go back and have to teach the kids how to answer questions online, answer emails, make sure that they're checking in on the correct platforms. Those are the things for administrators. That's the questions that I would like to have answered very soon. And then in the next few weeks, put some planning into that and put some dates together in the summer that, and I hate to say the word mandatory, but that are things the teachers need to do in order to come back to school ready to go and have a good plan going forward.
Yep, absolutely dead on. Good points. Judy, I think we had next.
Thanks, Wendy. I'm Judy Williams. I'm president of the Michigan School Counselor Association, and I want to give all the teachers and counselors out there huge amounts of credit. I started teaching online for Grand Valley. I've been with Grand Valley for 4 years and started teaching online in the fall. And so I had plenty of time to prepare for this, but what you all have done has been absolutely miraculous. And Todd used the word collaboration, and I think that's a key that we need to really stress, and we need to stress it with our staffs, with our administrators, as we move forward. The fact is, all of us have been traumatized through this in one way or another, and to make sure that anything that we do is going to be done through that trauma-informed lens, I think that's really essential. And to assume that those of us who are professionals, I was middle school, that's why I joined this one. That's what I left K-12 as a middle school counselor as. And to think that we're all going to come back the same is not true either. And so definitely teachers, connect with your school counselors. We do regular meetups with our members and non-members across the state, and we're hearing very similar concerns from them as well. But forward those names of students who have been in the dark that you haven't heard from, because what we're going to be encouraging our members and other school counselors to do is start creating those tier 1 interventions, those students that were tier 2 when you left school. They didn't disappear. They may have disappeared from your Zoom class or your Google Classroom, but those concerns are still there. And so definitely keep your school counselors in the loop. I think that's essential. The other thing I want people to be informed of is when we talk about collaboration, the Michigan School Counselor Association, Michigan Association of School Psychologists, and Michigan Association of School Social Workers are all working together with the Michigan Department of Education to create a mental health toolkit that hopefully will be posted on the MDE site, so that we'll have a central warehouse of best practices and evidence-based best practices going into the fall, because we don't know what this holds. And so please, if you have questions, feel free to, and Wendy and I are connected to one another. If you have any questions as to that aspect, we also know that school counselors, especially as we look towards the high school, there's going to be all those concerns for career development as well. And I know at the middle school, you're already starting to do that work through EDPs. So thank you for the opportunity.
It's so cool that you were here. That was a nice surprise. So it's good to connect with you.
You never know where I'm going to pop up.
I don't, but I'm glad you did. If everybody who's on the webinar right now, if you are on Twitter, this might be a good opportunity for us to connect with each other. So if you would, in the chat, put your Twitter handle, and you might just want to like grab a picture with your phone as these start going up. So maybe put your name in and then your Twitter handle, and oh, well, your name comes up. So that's easy enough. You might be able to make some new connections on here with people today. And as we're doing that, Steve can come back in and maybe wrap things up for us.
And we will create a text format of that and send it to you along on Friday with the COVID-19 update from MASSP. So that'll come along with the Twitter handles as well. So it sounds like a few big ideas here is looking forward, what's the systematic approach? Which means as educators, sometimes we have to let go of our own personal biases and our preferences for what's best for students and the system. Because even if we're looking at middle school, we have to think below us and we have to think above us. And what does that look like from a parent perspective? So what's the systematic view of that? The other one is, how do we get our colleagues on board? So thinking forward of how do we as educators do that versus expecting it from our administrators all the time? Because it's more powerful coming from a colleague than it is from an administrator. It becomes a must-do from an administrator, where a colleague can start to navigate those waters differently based on the way that we interact with each other. The other one is, how do we ensure we're getting effective feedback from not only our most at-risk learners and families, but from all families to say what's working, what's not, what would they appreciate, and then the system adapting towards their needs. Here's a challenge for you. Get into one another's Zoom or virtual meeting within the next week. Whether you're an administrator or a teacher, what I've learned from this is different techniques that I knew from the traditional classroom, but I didn't realize I could put into a virtual classroom. Or by me teaching a class and my colleague watching, he simply said, Colin Riskmaster said, hey, Steve, why didn't you incorporate this strategy? Or what did you notice about how you do this virtually in comparison to how you always did it in a traditional setting? Which just brought it to my awareness. So how do we use one another towards these times, not as an evaluation, but as a support tool? And then the last thing is just to think about, what's the communication coming from you? You are the catalysts, the teachers, the counselors, the social workers, and the principals to make successful assumptions and presumptions around the community. So what are you saying out to the community that you want to live within your community? Because we are the beacons of messaging. That being said, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to our panelists. And if you are interested in next week's Leader to Leader, or in the next week's, we will be looking at May 21st around student perspectives. So hearing from students at the middle school levels, what are they appreciating? What are they struggling with? The 26th will be Kim Marshall, if you're familiar with his work around the Marshall Memo. And then June 4th will be superintendent's perspectives. So we'll be doing this both through the middle school and the high school lenses, and we'd appreciate and support whatever you might wish to join, or if you have questions on the back end, feel free to shoot them either to Wendy or myself. Cool.
Hey,
Thoughts, Wendy?
We are also looking for middle school students for the panel. So if you happen to know a middle school student that you think would be willing to jump on Zoom with a bunch of adults, as we just did today, very similar format, we would love to hear from you. If you could send us an email with that student's name, what grade level they're in, and where they're from, we'll be reaching out to get a student panel together. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time that you gave today, and especially to the panelists and all you do for kids on a daily basis. Have a great day, everybody.
Welcome. Thanks for having us.